All right, here we are, AFT deck, talking about Star Trek Discovery. This week we have episode 4, Forget Me Not, and we have a lovely collection of folks that's going to talk about this episode with us. How are you all doing tonight?
Really stoked.
Don't all answer at one time.
A bundle of nerves and emotions.
Oh
I'm
my
going to say
gosh.
it's been 48 hours of extreme anxiety, and that was capped off by an incredibly emotional episode of Star Trek.
Right.
You know,
Right,
at least
exactly.
you guys are going to get to find out what the results are before I get to find out what's happening in my state, because it's going to take until the 12th.
That's true.
All right.
Yeah, as a former Georgian, I can say that that's really kind of awesome.
All right, so let's make that the. Wait, we already have a comment. It's from Wendy. It's Stove.
It is.
Yes. All right. So let's go around the horn very, very quickly. Let's don't do spoilers too soon, but tell me, we're going to go left to right. Tell me your overall impression of this week's episode. Don't get into too many details. Just say, your sort of overarching, I thought it was good, I thought it was bad, and here's why. So, Admiral, take it away.
Loved it. It was so emotional and such a good character journey for everyone involved. I just I was like I said, I was a big bundle of emotions by the end of it, and I loved every second, and I love our two newest characters so much.
Yeah. Lizbeth, how are you this week, and what did you think of the episode?
Well, first, I love Admiral's drink. What is he drinking there?
I drink of my own concoction out of the towel.
I love this cup. Okay, so but anyway, back to your question. I love this episode. If when we get to the ranking, this will get a 10 for me so far this season, and I was so weepy. I mean, I know that I've been on an emotional roller coaster, as have all of us over the past 48 hours. I've got CNN on the television to my left, but and then that maybe that heightened it. But this was an incredibly emotional episode for me, and yeah, I just loved it.
Anthony.
I also loved it. What I really loved was, while there was definitely a big storyline for Saru and Michael, we actually got a lot more of some of the minor characters. It opened with a log from Hugh Culber, and I love that. I love that show of more willingness to explore those characters, and that marked this episode out as really different to me, and was probably the main reason I loved it so much.
Right. As usual, Michael carries at least half of the episode's plot, but she's not the main character in it.
Mm-hmm.
This is so unusual for Discovery.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Okay,
so joining us for the first time ever is a friend of mine who I haven't seen in a good number of years. Dove, it's a pleasure to have you joining us.
And it is a pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of Discovery. I've been a Star Trek fan pretty much my entire life, and I am so excited about this week's episode just because, in addition to everything that people said, there are a lot of things. There were a couple of things I noticed actually from a meta perspective on the show that the writers are doing that might not immediately jump out, but that kind of really resonated very strongly with me. And honestly, I think this is my favorite episode of the season so far. I have one minor reservation about where they're taking something, but we can save that to later. But I think it's speculation. It's speculation, but I really like what they're doing.
I'm excited to hear what that speculation is. So there are certain things that I kind of want to save until later.
Yep.
But so let's just jump into the main body of this episode. This was episode 4. So, we're still sort of early in the season. As everybody knows, we're sort of on this search to find the Federation. So this week's episode, Forget Me Not, Discovery jumps its way to Trill. Michael and Adira beam down. Well, no, they shuttle down to the surface where they unexpectedly meet Ronnie from Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
Canon crossover confirmed.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to
Saru,
watch the show now, aren't I?
Saru,
Yes, you are.
you absolutely have to. It's mandatory. Saru decides to throw Thanksgiving dinner without knowing at all that Thanksgiving always erupts into fights and family arguments, and that at least one person is going to storm away from the table. So
Your
typical
bitchy aunt is
Thanksgiving,
going to take the bottle of wine with her too.
and
Perfect. Yeah.
and Detmer recites on the spot the bloodiest haiku ever. So that sets the tone for
Not only
our
that,
episode.
but she recites like 7 different versions of it.
She gave Lady Macbeth a run for her money.
Right. The Detmer line I want to save till later on. So let's jump into the whole Trill plot, because this is, Discovery kind of went on the path that modern Doctor Who did, where it sort of very, very gradually introduced elements from the series past into its plot. So now we're in territory where we're just doing wholesale episodes based around things that we've seen in previous series. This whole thing sort of centers around the caves of Makala on Trill, which we first there was a whole episode in DS9 set in the caves where Jadzia goes back and has this ritual thing where she integrating all the past lives and all that kind of stuff. So this is a big moment for Discovery. So kind of talk about us visiting Trill for the first time. And do you think we'll be seeing more of that later in the season?
I don't know about later in this season. I think Trill, kind of like it was in DS9, is something that you might come back to like once in a blue moon if they want to have something specifically about the Trill character, like a Trill, that character focused story. But I think they did what they needed to on Trill in this episode.
I agree. I think it was Trill, like you said, Trill did what it needed to do. It was there for the purpose of helping Adira get their personalities sorted out and getting their memories back. And I don't think we might see him maybe at the end, but I don't think we're going to see him for quite a while.
Okay.
And I mean, they also had that hook about, if we, maybe if you start getting the Federation together, then maybe we can, talk about that. So
of a different kind.
So kind of a hook into that. But even then, I don't know that they'd go back to Trill specifically for that. But, like any show like this, they're just building in hooks that they can come back to.
Absolutely.
And from a visual perspective, it would be insane to not use this again. Just to use those visuals to have that be a one-off thing in the series would be crazy. But
yes, exactly. So are you fans of the Trills in general? Like from previous shows? Are you excited that the Trills are something that's coming back in such a big way in this series?
I like the Trill main characters that we've had. The Trills themselves, as I was remarking on my own Facebook page, it's like, well, it's nice to see that there's still dicks in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're still like incredibly narrow-minded and anal retentive about who gets to be joined. And even like when we established in Deep Space Nine that 50% of the Trill population is capable of being joined, they're like, well, now we don't have enough. I'm like, wait, are they still persisting in this lie even like, 600, 700 years later? Or is
but he said,
did that many people die in the burn?
That's what he said.
That they had lost.
Right, that we had been decimated. And he said specifically that it was mostly joined Trills that were lost. Which I thought was really interesting. So obviously, joined Trills all go off and be in Starfleet, and they were all on ships that exploded.
Yeah, and if you noticed when Adira had her big revelation, when all of her personalities came forward, you noticed there were like two Starfleet uniforms. I'm pretty sure that group, including Senatal, appeared to be like a higher ranking officer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, we know he's an
sure it
admiral.
seemed like no,
Well,
there
that's
was
true.
there was at least three because you had the one
Yep.
with the white uniform, you had
Oh, yeah,
the
that's right.
admiral,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you had
Oh,
the guy in the Picard the guy in the Picard era uniform.
yeah.
hmm
So that does
Yes.
make me ask, if we've got one that's in a Picard era uniform, how long do the symbionts live, and is Dax floating around somewhere?
Okay,
Well,
I'm
go
actually
ahead.
I'm really excited about this because so I noticed a couple of times in here I thought that they were going to be setting us up for a big reveal that this was actually Dax. The thing is, I thought it because they were doing a lot of misdirection for longtime fans, because they had they had Tal being a musician, for example, and that's something that was threaded a lot through DS9. You had a reference to Bajoran Hosperat, which
Yes.
was another DS9 reference. So I'm sitting here like, there's going to be some kind of a thing, and it's also been established in one of the comics, one of the newer comics, that Emily Dax has actually met Giorgio back in the original timeline.
Oh, that's
Oh.
interesting.
So so the thing is, I thought that they were setting us up for that. I'm glad that they didn't, because that would have been really dumb. But
Yes.
I did like that they're kind of establishing this. And as for how long symbionts live, like, multiple centuries, they've never really given us an upper limit on that. But 500 years is not unreasonable.
Because I started rewatching Deep Space Nine, and Jadzia is the 7th host.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's 300 years old.
Yeah. We got a couple of comments coming in, and so I just want to get to a couple of them really quickly. R.L. Gray asks, did we see the Trill world on previous series? Yes, in DS9, Jadzia has to go back. It was in the episode Equilibrium. She has to go back, and she gets into the caves of Makala and goes into the pool. And it's something, I haven't seen the episode in a million years. So it's something to do with reintegrating all the previous host personalities into her own, I believe it was.
Because they had suppressed one of them, and she had to. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that they had
the psychopathic murderer.
Right. It was also the musician.
He also says, why does the new character get more backstory and exploration than almost any of the second tier bridge characters? Okay. She's important to the plot. That's why. Okay, but I think this question is, in 3 years, why haven't those characters been made an important element in the plot? Right. And we're going to talk about that later on tonight. I want to save that for after our Trill exploration. He also says, isn't it pretty bigoted to refer to the symbiont as a squid?
I mean, Adira refers to the symbiont as the squid themselves, so it's kind of right. I don't know.
Is it any better or worse than Jadzia in her 1960s character in Deep Space Nine, referring to it as a worm?
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, she has a worm in her belly.
Yeah.
All right. One more really quickly.
It's
Wendy
more
says,
accurate, but...
the symbiont can talk to Adira about that. That's something that I kind of want to jump into, is that at the end of the episode where Gray makes a reappearance, I want to talk about those two specifically, because I think Dove on your Facebook page called them the cutest couple of Star Trek ever.
Well, actually, Adam called them.
Oh, that. Adam did. Okay,
but I agree with that. I agree. Yeah. I think that they're definitely my favorite. I love the direction that they're going in with these, because it's kind of interesting that it's kind of a split personality that they're establishing with the character, which is it's still new ground for Trill, which is kind of cool. I love that. I love that she's basically they're basically kind of allowing themselves to express both of those personalities in their own mind.
Right.
My issue, and this is the meta issue that I was talking about. So in the pre-season press, when they were talking about this new character that was going to be added, and they were, or actually the two new characters, and they were talking about how one's played by a trans actor, one's played by a non-binary actor, and they specifically they were referring to the new character as non-binary, and a couple of non-binary friends were talking about how when they first brought on Adira, and they're like, wait, that's the non-binary actor, and they're Trill. Are they really going to try and bring in the Trill gender swapping as the source of the non-binary identity? And it feels, I think that they've sidestepped it a lot, because in the show itself, they're not referring to this person as non-binary. I don't know how that's going to develop out.
So on that note, I did read an interview with the actor who plays them.
with Liz.
Where they said that it's something they keep to themselves until they're ready to start telling people, and I think they start opening up in a future episode to Stamets and Culber.
Right.
And they described it in the interview as their journey.
And here's the thing. Because what they're referring to at the end of this episode is having Gray as this other personality as the secret that they didn't want to tell anybody about. I don't know. It's just, it feels like it's one of those things, like it just feels really tone deaf. Like it could be really tone deaf.
I agree.
But it also feels like if they had not set this up from the beginning as this is a non-binary character, if they had just let this plot happen as this person is two personalities in one mind or whatever, if they had done that and not brought in the non-binary aspect, it would have been amazing, without any reservation at all. But the fact that they're kind of like, they did this in the marketing, it's really ringing hollow for me and a couple other people I've talked to. But that aside, that's like literally the only gripe I have with this episode. Those characters.
And that was kind of my concern last week, is that are we using the Trill to illustrate a concept to an audience and make it a palatable thing, or are we explaining non-binary away? Like, we can only have a non-binary character if we come up with some goofy sci-fi explanation for it,
right? And so I think that they might be sidestepping it entirely. I think if they go the route of having this as a person with two personalities and have it played by, you have a trans man actor and a non-binary actor playing the two parts of this person, and that's representation already, and that's also revolutionary in and of itself. It's great. That is cool, and I think that that's great. And I just hope that they're not going to try and push this too far into somewhere, somewhere that it doesn't fit, right?
Right, exactly.
It's new territory for them, so I'm going to kind of sit back and wait and see how they treat it before I start being critical.
For sure.
You have to.
I look forward to when we do the season finale and we can look back and say how well did they handle a trans character and a non-binary character. I think there's still so much to wait and see on.
And I certainly hope they're listening to Blue Del Barrio for their opinion and their life story, and also for let's see, I cannot remember Gray's actor's name, Ian Alexander.
Right.
For his opinion and what he wants, how he wants to portray his character.
For sure.
Because I don't like, I spent most of my life growing up with Native American culture in my house, thanks to my dad's hobbies and interests, and 7 years of Akuchi Moya was like, you guys did not do the homework. You didn't even bother. You just decided to put a bunch of native stuff into a blender and then you poured it out into Robert Beltran.
Actually, I found out they actually did have a consultant on Voyager. It's just that the consultant was full of shit. The consultant was lying the entire time. He made up his whole story.
Wow. I hadn't heard that.
And nobody double checked. Like spirit walk ancestry, coyotes and stuff.
Right. Well,
that sounds right. Let's just go with it. I'm sure he's right.
He'd been faking his entire career as somebody speaking on these issues. He'd been faking it entirely, and so he had a reputation. and they just kind of went with what he was saying, and it turns out that he was just totally full of shit.
Well, that's the thing. He was trying that whole fake it till you make it approach, and he never made it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: as someone who grew up in England, I had no idea until I moved here and started learning about, Native American culture. I was like, the fuck was Voyager about? But as like an 8-year-old, I had no clue.
Getting back to Disco, and one of the elements that I'm not sure that we've mentioned yet is that Adira had lost basically all her memory.
Mhm.
So maybe she isn't. Maybe this whole like gender thing is part of her regaining her memories of who she was before the accident. And speaking of that, this week's episode, I don't think she's worked so far this season, but this week's episode was directed by Hanali Culpepper.
Yep.
Mhm.
Gorgeous work. That whole scene, the cello playing and all that stuff leading up to the asteroid smashing into that was so well done. Oh my God.
She is such an auteur because it felt like her episodes of Picard.
Yes.
It really did. And it was such like, it had that emotional depth. I mean, and that was another thing in this episode that I don't think we've seen emotional depth done quite like this in an episode of Star Trek before. And I was kind of blown away. Before we've had, I mean, I am kind of well known among my friends for being like the one person that doesn't like The Inner Light.
I have one other person who doesn't.
I'm with you there. That's just, it's such an overrated show.
It is, but it's very saccharine. It feels like they're like trying too hard, kind of very fake. This episode actually felt really real. Like it was like real. I was kind of blown away by the depth that they brought into what the things that they were talking about, like actually going into PTSD a bit, like the things that these people were suffering from, and it was just like it was refreshing, honestly.
Yeah. I was just reading Wendy's comments and I lost the thought that I was just going to put out. So talk amongst yourselves.
What do you think about Zora coming in play? I love like Alexa on steroids,
I didn't think that they were going to reveal it this early in the show. I thought that they were going to save that like for maybe like later on.
Well, I mean, it's all of a sudden she was like there, like Saru was like
like her voice
like
starts
regular, and then all of a sudden
over the regular voice,
and then she's like suggesting movie outings and interstellar shopping and yoga, and I was like, what the?
Which is interesting.
I was like, wait, hold on. Did they write this episode during the pandemic?
Yes.
Which is
interesting.
It's interesting because if you remember the short trek,
Calypso.
That's the whole thing, is that she's entertaining Calypso with these old movies.
Yes.
I'm loving it. I
loved it. I was blown away. I was like, this is the best thing ever.
Zora's got a favorite genre.
What about the little snippet in that scene where Linus brings some popcorn to Giorgio?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, is this like a budding friendship or what?
I know, but I'm on board this ship.
Linus is somebody that I want to see more.
Oh yeah.
I love the fact that he has these wonderful little spots in every episode that are like 10 seconds long, but they're very impactful.
Right, and the actor plays a whole bunch of other aliens. Like he's sort of like the second Doug Jones on the show in that he plays all these different characters where
Doug has to stay Saru, so we need somebody else to be the Doug.
Yeah, so he's always immersed under like heavy prosthetics and stuff, so you never really see him. So Linus is just one of his many things. Before we leave Trill though, dang it, I had the thought and it just went out of my damn head again.
I hate when that happens.
I have a thought. I do.
You go right ahead.
So let's go back to TNG and the host.
Right.
So
do we have to? Do we have to?
Was he a Trill or was he not a Trill? Did they just
retcon
that?
It's a weird thing where he was a Trill and he's still a Trill, but he's a different kind of Trill, so he doesn't have the spots.
He has the
like they apparently were going to do the same with Terry Farrell, and decided that the spots were easier.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't that they're easier. It's that she's a sexy, beautiful woman, and they didn't want to cover that up. That's exactly what it is. So they took. There was some other alien that had spots, and they just took that idea and splatted it on Terry's head. That sounded as rude as it could possibly have sounded. But the thing that I want to jump to is it's going to be interesting, since we knew going into this episode that both Adira and Gray are recurring characters this season, but you saw, that Gray is a previous host and what happened. It's interesting that they're going to use this recurring character as sort of like like them having conversations, because that's not something that Trills do.
Generally, no, it's not.
There was that episode of another episode of DS9 where they had that ceremony where Dax's previous personalities are all inhabiting other characters around her so that she can have conversations with them. She has access to their memories, but they're not active personalities.
Right.
But maybe it's different because... But maybe it's a different spin now because this is a human host.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be the reason, though.
But here's the other thing. I mean, I think it's entirely possible for Trills to have split personalities like humans do. I mean, it could just legitimately be a disorder, and maybe this is one of those ways that they kind of backdoor in a discussion of neuroatypical life.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things also going on there potentially. One, we saw what difficulty Esri had since she was not prepared for it. Just differentiating between her likes and dislikes, her memories, and the symbiote's memories, her skills and the symbiote's skills, et cetera, et cetera. And there's also, we've never had a Trill bond to a human permanently before. With Odan, it was only temporary until the new host came around.
Right.
And also, we've never had a situation where the previous host was in a relationship with the current host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much in very, very much uncharted territory with Adira.
You know what? The episode I just remembered was Field of Fire from 7th season, where Esri resurfaced the killer.
Yeah, Duran.
And the thing is that there were a lot of scenes in that episode where in her mind Duran was right there with her, and it almost feels like they might be doing something similar here. So they might pull that in as a reason why too. That Adira just did that to kind of have a more have help or something. I don't know.
Well, I think on that note, with Adira having a deep emotional connection with Gray, that I think might be that exact reason. Again, pulling in something to help you cope, and particularly someone that you loved. I could see that being. I think you're on something there.
And when they see Gray as well is when they're playing the music. So which was Gray's thing. Maybe that helps bring Gray out.
Right.
Good point.
Right. Speaking of somebody you love, we were talking earlier about the sort of the composition of this coupleship, and I think that it really works not only because they're written very well and they're written in a way that's very, very genuinely emotional. You've got two actors that are really young, come into these parts and just immediately have this chemistry.
Yeah.
That just, they really sell those two characters and that relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was floored. I loved it.
Yep.
How old are those two actors? Did anybody remember?
Blue is, I think 23.
Okay.
And I think Ian is like 19. He's young.
Yeah.
He's young. Yeah, he's
very
young. But Blue is a good bit older than her character. The character is 16, and they are, I think, 23. 23.
But yeah, to be able to nail
they're
that
23. Sorry, I'm looking it up
That's
right
okay.
now.
What did you say?
To nail that depth of emotion, Blue, I mean, I remember the scene where she was being physically rejected when she was on Trill, and they were just telling, laying into it.
Yep.
I mean, that close up of her face and the emotion and the tear coming down her face. I mean, that's when I started getting weepy during the episode, and it just built, throughout the rest of the showing. But I mean, she is just amazing.
I want to say really quickly that at the beginning of the episode where Saru is like, you and Dr. Culber will go down to Trill, and Culber goes into Burnham's room, and he's like, you should really be the one to go down there. I was like, fucking
seriously,
should.
Seriously,
fucking Michael Burnham. But
that
then
made no sense.
Really, she kind of like sets the tone for those scenes, but she's not the focus of those scenes.
Right.
Which I loved. I mean, I'm not anti-Burnham at all, but
it was nice seeing her as an accessory character almost. I mean,
nobody else on the ship other than Georgiou probably would have kicked those guys' asses.
That scene was just amazing.
I was like, well, they said no, we've got to go back to the ship. And Burnham
She's like, all right, bang, bang, bang. Right. It was like, okay, we're done talking.
Wendy. Sorry. Wendy says, if you
loved how we had...
Go ahead.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go!
No.
Anthony, go.
There's a lag. I was going to say, I just loved how Culber was basically orchestrating everything this episode. In the background.
That's one of the things that I want to talk about in the next part of the discussion. Yeah.
Okay, then.
Go ahead. Man, you're lagging all kinds of crazy. Wendy said, if you watch Ready Room, Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz were gushing over those two actors. They did. And how the two of them are the wave of the future of just being GLBTQ, being themselves. Right. Like what they were saying is they didn't come into these roles in the sense of we're groundbreaking and we are setting a tone. They just came in as unapologetically themselves. They just are who they are. And that's what's groundbreaking about it. And that's what's going to really break barriers.
And I think that's one of the great things, because we're not, coming in and introducing this character with, hey, I'm this. Look at all the things that come about with me being what I am. It's just it's just life.
Yeah, it's just there
as they are.
But the connection that those two actors form is so believable on screen. Except that scene about the quilt.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Again, weeping. But I mean, they just have this natural chemistry that I mean, you really believe them to be a couple. There's a real connection.
I mean, I was there from like the first moment, and it's like, oh my God, they're so perfect.
They're so cute.
Clarence Brown comments that he loved Adira's confidence after coming out of the pool. When all the personalities have been integrated, she's like a new person.
Yeah.
And, that's a good actor.
Yeah.
That can pull that kind of thing off.
Yeah.
All right. Any more thoughts about Trill before we jump elsewhere? Okay. Awesome. Then here we go to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
Oh, man. We all could identify with that dinner. I mean, and Saru's face when we went back in after everybody left and he was sitting there, I'm thinking, I have that face every Thanksgiving dinner after everybody storms out of the table. That's me.
Yeah. I felt this so hard because let me tell you, like being the only liberal in your family, it's gonna be interesting this year, one way or the other.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
So actually, okay, the Thanksgiving scene is my other made a comment on where they're going here, and it's something that it didn't occur to me until afterwards, but it's very much almost thumbing its nose at the original Roddenberry concept of no one ever disagrees in space.
Yes. Yes.
And
Exactly.
and I think that it's the embrace of you might actually have some conflict here and there that has
Yes.
made this so emotionally resonant. Like
Yes.
I really feel like this episode, like all of season 3 so far, but especially this episode has been like the emotional core of what a crew actually is working
Mhm.
together, like who they are, how they work as a family, the fact that they're actually going to get pissed off at one another. Like it felt so real. And it's something that I don't think even in DS9's best moments, when they kind of got a lot of it right, it never felt this resonant.
Yes.
It was like it was definitely one of Roddenberry's rules that there's no interpersonal conflict, and once he passed on, you start to see it emerge more in TNG. You
Mhm.
really see it emerge in Deep Space Nine. Like one of the things that was pointed out to me when it starts is Cisco's immediate problem with Picard.
Yep.
And it's like that was a moment that established this is not the same old Trek.
Right.
And such is the same thing that happened with Thanksgiving dinner, is that we're going to have a crew that's going to have problems with each other once in a while.
But the thing is, on DS9 and Voyager, the conflict generally comes from Starfleet characters, Maquis characters, Starfleet characters,
Exactly.
Bajoran characters. They have different POVs. They're coming from different angles, and those angles clash.
Exactly.
They have agendas. The Starfleet people, you never really got like conflict amongst the Starfleet people on that as a general rule. So this is kind of a different thing where you are getting that. And again, it's sort of forced on them from an outside influence, this whole like jumping into the future thing.
Okay, with the exception of Stamets, who's just a general asshole in general, and it's really easy to get angry at him anyway. Like, honestly, I really like, he went from somebody I disliked to somebody I actively hated in this episode.
He was being a real jerk.
I'm going to say there, because I thought he got better this episode, because he was an ass at dinner, and then he realizes where he was wrong, and he goes back and he verbally apologizes to Tilly. He makes up with Detmer.
I can't forgive him for the way he treated Tilly at the beginning, though. Like,
Okay.
I can't. Like, even that apology, I don't.
But Detmer was right. I mean, he was being. I mean, you felt very much like he thought he was like, everything in a bag of chips, because the ship can't fly without me. And then Detmer coming in. Well, why don't you try to fly this fucking monster? I mean, and I just love I love the family dynamics there.
Yeah.
That really showed them as a family, but also the whole time that everything was breaking apart, you were thinking the dam is breaking. This has needed to happen for obviously months. And the doctor was right that until they admitted that they were broken, until they admitted that they all were not okay, they weren't going to start getting okay. And seeing that happen was refreshing. I mean, it was the turning point, because the dam did break. That's the analogy that I kept thinking during that whole time.
I was watching. Go ahead, Anthony.
I was going to say, I thought there's an interesting reflection, and given the timing of filming, it's probably unintentional, but the idea of that stress and tension of dealing with the unknown that we've all been going through for the last 9 months at this point, it feels incredibly relatable. And I think we're all feeling that tension. We've all probably snapped at someone we love at some point during the pandemic, because we are going through something that literally no one's gone through in 100 years. And equally at the same time, you've got Discovery going through a scenario that no one there can possibly understand because no one else has been through that 800 odd year time jump.
And it's amazing
strangely prescient.
because that episode was written months ago before the pandemic even showed up on the radar, and for this episode to be that prescient, I mean, because they are dealing with the same thing. I mean, I guess that's why that episode resonates so much, because we are dealing with so much of the same, all of the missed things, all of the separation.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so identifiable, and I just was amazed that I said, wow, they wrote this months before the pandemic. How did they know this was coming?
But I'm hoping that them having this breakthrough at Thanksgiving dinner is not going to be the end of that story, because this is something that it's just like after you have a loved one who passes away. Every time you encounter something, it brings them back. The first time you have a Christmas without that person, the first time their birthday comes around, those kind of things.
You start mourning all over again.
Right.
And
so,
it's like I was. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, so I really want there to be, I don't want them to have to dwell on it, but it can't be left behind easily. And I want them when, and I think they showed a scene at the end of Will Wheaton's show for next week that I think that this might come up. Burnham is still looking for her mother. I want there to be some moment, maybe with Tilly or something, where she pouts about her mother, can't find her mother, and I want somebody to say, at least you have a mother that you can look for. Mine died 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, these people agreed to this mission and jumped to the future. They had the chance to write letters home, but they didn't see those people. They didn't have a chance to say, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, that's hard to deal with. So
100%.
Let me get a couple of comments.
I like Wendy's comment
about this one.
Oh no, well that one too, but no, the one below about Culber.
Oh yes. I'm getting to that one definitely.
Holidays are always about drama.
Thanksgiving, several drama. Okay. My buddy George is another guy who I haven't seen in a million years. This episode gave me the feel so many times, about ready to burst into tears the whole episode.
About ready? I did. Like I said, I was weepy through 3/4 of the episode.
100%, yeah.
Not crying, it's just raining.
And Wendy is certain that Culber made Stamos go in and apologize.
Oh, yeah.
You apologized to her. You walk right back in there.
Clarence is wondering if we had talked about the computer. We did.
Just briefly, though. I mean,
Just
but
briefly.
that was pretty interesting. I mean, all of a sudden she flipped the mode over and completely different voice and tone, and like I said, started throwing out these wonderful options. How about yoga? What about interstellar shopping?
Right. So.
It's like, has Laura been looking at my browsing history for the last 8 months?
If we go back to season 2, first of all, we had the short trek Calypso, where Discovery's computer, its AI, is basically sentient. If you go back to Project Daedalus in season 2, before Ariam left the ship, she uploaded every one of her memories into the Discovery computer. I have been convinced ever since that Flora is like a continuation of, Ariam is now evolved into Zora.
Oh, now I'm going to cry again.
I feel like it's like a big blending of the sphere data, the Discovery computer, and Ariam. It's like it's all developed like a new personality. Like when Jarvis
in Ultron
became the Vision. Like it's like, well, I'm not Ultron and I'm not Jarvis. I am me.
Right.
Yeah.
So Detmer.
Yes.
I've been a cheerleader for the secondary bridge characters for a long time now. And I'm a big fan of any time they get something significant to say Usually it's a line of dialogue. I am thrilled that one of them is getting a continuing character developing storyline this season.
Yes.
I'm just excited about it.
You just want to like hug her and go like, let it out. Like this has obviously been building since the ship crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that
was
scene
interesting.
with that close up when she was at the Thanksgiving table and the
Yeah.
close up of her clenching the table.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many little moments during that whole thing, but that was one of them that stood out, was that she was just trying to deal with it. I mean, again, I got very weepy during that time because you just really felt for her.
Mhm.
It was really interesting in the season opener because a lot of people I saw online were asking, has she been possessed by Control?
Oh my
And
God, I thought the same thing. I was convinced.
But
I was like,
I thought that at first, but I think
like,
that it
no,
is
I was with you,
PTSD.
Anthony, because
Done
I'm
with
like, this
that.
has to be some level of PTSD.
Well,
yeah,
not the
I
opener,
thought it would
sorry,
have been so
episode 2.
dumb if they had done it. It would have been
It
so
would have been
dumb.
awful.
Yeah.
But I thought that they were going to do it. But I was very, very happy to be proven wrong. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm
And
just
you
really glad they didn't go down that path, and they are looking at
Mhm.
PTSD as a thing because
Yeah.
Which
you know
it's a
it's
far
real.
more
and-
interesting storyline than a second possession by Control.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because it's
know?
relatable. I mean, it is
Exactly.
a human condition. It's not
Exactly.
an outside sci-fi alien kind of thing.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, it's really identifiable. I mean, and that's, I think, what resonates with people so much watching her.
And
Mhm.
it's something that like that we know from this, and we know from It's Only a Paper Moon, that while
Yeah.
we're going to get a lot better at treating PTSD in the future, it's still something that happens.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
I also
It's
think
not like, Picard walking into sickbay and complaining about a headache, and Crusher's going like, "What's that? Never heard of that before."
I also think it ties into what's been a core theme of the show, and that's what it is to be human. Like,
Mhm.
very much a big part of Burnham's journey has been discovering her humanity.
Mhm.
Well, now we're looking at things like PTSD that a lot of people suffer from and are not necessarily talked about. And we're seeing, admittedly, a character who has been secondary bridge. But now we're seeing some of those characters getting more emphasis, like Detmer. And we're seeing them suffer from these things that a lot of people do suffer from, and it's giving a lot of recognition to that. And I think helping that message get across will help foster understanding.
Mhm.
I agree.
Absolutely. And I just want to also say, Emily Coots, man,
Mhm.
finally given an episode with some real acting, and
Yep.
she just nailed it. I mean, she was riveting, I thought.
Mhm.
Because I was aware of her from other stuff from before Discovery, so I'm like, okay, so they've got to be. They cast her obviously to make her a character, and not just be, hey, the pilot of the ship.
Mhm.
And now it's starting to really pay off, I think, with her.
Yeah. Chris reminds us that the PTSD theme started with Patrick Stewart and Alfred Woodard in the movie.
Yep.
For
It
Star Trek,
actually
which is
it goes back further
true.
than that, because the episode they did was
Yeah.
it Family or whatever after
Family,
Best of
right.
Both Worlds.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But and that's true. It was surprising to get a second episode. The movie shows us that it was a lingering condition.
Mhm.
That's not something you got a lot of in episodic Star Trek.
Yeah.
You did a storyline, the next week you do a new storyline. You don't continue, and even with Nog in DS9, you did, after he loses his leg in battle, you have one episode basically where he has to deal with it. But we've now done 3 episodes of Detmer continuously, going down sort of like this solitary road where she feels like she has no recourse, she has no help, and that's amazing.
Well, I mean, I'd argue with back with Picard, we see it in every episode that he deals with the Borg from then on.
Mhm.
Like,
I don't know
it's
that they really
especially
play it up
prevalent
much,
in
though, a little bit.
iBoard with Hugh.
It's referenced. I don't think it's
He spends most of the episode hating Hugh's guts and fully ready to send him back into the into the collective with the virus that's going to, cause them all to go become individuals and go nuts. But it takes seeing Hugh as a person underneath all the machinery to get him to decide otherwise.
Wendy points out that Detmer says that pilots are macho. Absolutely right.
Yeah, I remember that because that is
Yeah.
something that you hear so much from soldiers in modern in our times.
Yeah.
Because that's why they don't admit they have a problem, because
Yeah.
the macho feelings that are assigned to soldiers, that they're not supposed to have to deal with things like that.
Yeah.
And the fact that she admitted that out was so yeah.
I don't think
And-
that they have counselors.
Yeah,
Did they
I
have a
agree with
counselor
that.
come with them? I mean, that's what I'm thinking, was a counselor stayed back on the other place.
Giorgio's the new counselor. They got to
Oh,
find
God.
him.
Like, get over it.
You will
Get a
come to
hold of
me, Claude.
yourself.
Get over it and get out of my office.
And that's what I found so interesting
Go
about
kill
this.
something. That will make you feel better.
What I found so interesting about this is that using Culber as sort of the framing device for this episode, where he's the first voice you hear, he's the ship's log, basically, is he's assuming that role. He's the one who
He's the
comes
new
to Detmer.
Troy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the overall health of the crew is his job. It was
Absolutely.
it was the
That
same for
includes mental
Bones
health.
on
Right.
the original series. He often had to step into that counseling role as well.
Often.
Well, every once in a while.
I mean, his counseling was basically sharing a whiskey with Kirk.
I dig it. I wish
Have
my
you never
therapist
treated
would
a
do that.
bartender as a counselor before?
So yeah, I think that I found Culber's, and can I just say, does he not have like the most amazing set of chompers you have ever
Yes.
seen?
I know.
It is like turning on a light switch when he smiles. It is
Yeah.
amazing.
And the white uniform just reflects off of it. I mean,
Right.
I
Hang on. Where did it go? There it is. Okay. It's disappointing that they still have a concept of macho in the 23rd century.
yeah.
I mean, well, okay.
No.
If we go, it wasn't there a whole thing about Pike saying he didn't like women on the bridge or something like that? Like that was something that happened early on.
Like, yeah, that was in the original pilot.
Oh, that. I thought
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
part. I got
yeah,
you.
that part. Yeah. So the thing is and
Oh,
the
yeah.
thing is like, I don't know. There's definitely sexism that survived somewhere in the future. I mean, it's all over.
We're just going to consider that a one-off because obviously
No,
he never
sure.
acted like that ever again.
Sure, yeah, but the thing is, though, is like there's definitely sexism that has survived,
Oh yeah.
and you definitely see like next generation characters
Mhm.
are absolutely like the men behave in a lot of ways like. Well, no, okay, we'll leave the Klingons aside. I mean, male human characters.
Yeah, look at
still-
Riker. I mean,
Yeah.
who was basically the new Kirk, through the galaxy in TNG.
Right.
I mean, even
Yeah.
Deanna commented on that occasionally.
But
Right.
What-
So
what I like about Detmer being the one being macho is it turns that sexism on its head and has a female character acting in
Mhm.
that way.
Yeah,
So
and you're right, and it's really identifying macho with her role,
Right.
not that as a male attribute. It's now an attribute that's associated with the role of being
Yes.
a pilot, no matter who you are.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't necessarily see her as macho anyway. I mean, if you go to the modern Battlestar Galactica and Starbuck,
Yeah.
that's a
Mhm.
macho chick.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
macho.
Oh yeah. And
I mean,
very
she's
sexy.
far more macho than I could ever hope to be. And I don't
Lights
really
the cigar.
associate Detmer in that same kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she doesn't smoke cigars and knock. Well, she may. We just don't see it.
I want to see it. I want to see
see-
that.
Me too,
yeah.
right?
I just want to see Detmer knock back a whiskey and I'm gonna fly this ship.
Well, it's all synthol, so it doesn't have the same effect.
Somebody gotta have some real
Oh, they didn't.
Yeah.
Synthol wasn't not in Discovery's time.
That's true.
I love Clarence's comment that Alan.
But they
Yeah.
had it in the last episode.
They did have it in the last episode.
Yeah,
Oh, they
because
did?
that was what
Oh.
Book was complaining about was
Yeah.
that he'd had all of this alcohol and then realized it was synthol, so it wasn't
Oh, that's right.
gonna
Oh,
do
yeah.
anything.
That's right.
But like I said, somebody's got to have. There's one person on the ship that's got the contraband somewhere.
Yeah,
Like we have established that across Trek.
It's-
It's one person in the crew every posting.
My
Who's the
keyboard-
Mariner? Who's the Mariner on Discovery?
Probably Linus.
That's who's got all the.
Linus.
It's
100%
Linus.
Mariner in
It's Linus.
Discovery, Paris in Voyager, Quark in Deep Space Nine, if we count him as a crew member. Clearly, it must have been Riker in TNG.
Well, they said in Lower Decks that they established that in Lower Decks that was Riker's.
Yeah,
thing.
because that's where
then
Mariner
in
was getting a
Relics,
lot of her
the green
stuff.
came from Picard.
Oh, true. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Who do you think gave
Or
it to
Guinan.
Guinan?
Guinan also had.
well,
Guinan had good stuff.
all things come from Guinan.
Right.
Yes.
My buddy keyboard wizard Alan says, "Wonder where Dax is." We think now online resources like Memory Alpha say that a Trill symbiont lives about 500-ish years, so pretty sure Dax would not still be around since. We were saying that
years old at the beginning of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and if she had survived, she probably is one of the Trill that bought it in the burn. So
Yeah, true.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
Wendy brought up the good comment. Oh, sorry.
On Ready Room, this is Wendy again. Cruz admits the possibility of Culber being a proto-counselor, and another thing that he said in that in the after show tonight is the scene where they start the haiku thing, where Giorgio says her thing and he says, "Is that haiku?" And then he makes one and he flubs the last line. Will Wheaton asked him, was that a genuine flub or was that scripted? And he said it was scripted. And he said in his mind, he wasn't like given an explanation for why Culber flubbed the line. In his mind, he does it intentionally to kind of break tension around the table and to give people permission to make mistakes. He's saying, and he's trying to get people to like break through that wall of of separation, of like protectivism of yourself. He's trying to say it's okay. It's okay. Stuff happens and it's fine. I just thought that was a really, really cool little insight.
Well, all I know is that at my next Thanksgiving dinner, we're going to do a haiku off with going around the table.
Well, hopefully it doesn't turn as bloody as Detmer's.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm gonna memorize that haiku from the episode, whip that one out at dinner.
Nice.
We mentioned earlier about the crew's general PTSD not being left behind this episode. I really hope that this isn't the end of Detmer's arc.
Yeah.
I want to see her go through, even if it's a brief scene, I want to see her go through a counseling session with Culber. So, all right. So let me get just like a couple of last comments. What does R.L. Gray say? Gotta see Linus for that dank Klingon kush.
Nice.
Yeah, you know Linus is
Thanks, RL.
holding.
Right, exactly.
He can hook you up with
Okay.
Romulan ale. That's all I'm saying.
All right, so let's wrap up with Elizabeth has already spoiled us with the rating that she would give this
10,
episode.
yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, let's rank the episode and give your reasons why. Elizabeth, go ahead and tell us your rank again and tell us.
It's number 10 because I that was just an emotionally wrought episode that really connected with me. I mean, I got all the feels, as somebody said earlier. I mean, on every level from so many of the different stories. From the love story, from Detmer's, revelation at the end, to the crew's dam breaking over Thanksgiving meals. I mean, everybody. It just really, really resonated with me.
Anthony, what you got to say?
Oh no.
Oh, he's frozen.
Oh, Anthony.
He needs to get a better internet service.
So,
There we are.
Good God. Am I back yet? Is this
Yes,
working?
you are.
Cox screwed it for you.
After last time, I bought a Wi-Fi extender so I'd have better connection in this room. It hasn't helped. So I'm giving this one 9 out of 10 because I don't really do 10 out of 10. It basically has to be perfection for me to do that. But I agree with Lisbeth. This one hit me in all of the feels. I love the DS9 references with Trill and even the little things like the reference with Husparat. I loved seeing what the crew were going through, how Burnham, while still having a lot of the plot, wasn't the main character in the way that she has been. So I really enjoyed this one. It was a really nice take on everything. And I think it's the direction that Discovery should definitely go in. It was real human drama.
Dove, what do you got to say?
I definitely give it a 10. It's just for all the reasons that both Lisbeth and Anthony have said. It's the most human episode. I honestly think that the only episode that could be better than this is the one where Stamets gets impaled again for good this time. I'm sorry. He's awful. He's awful.
He's a leaf on the wind. No.
Yeah, nobody. Yes, thank you. Hopefully, yeah. I don't know. I want him and Tilly to finish Tilly's engine or Tilly's interface, and then he just dies. Like,
maybe Tilly can go back to when she was the captain in the mirror universe, and she can like put him in what do you call the the agony booth? Maybe she can stick him in an agony booth.
But no, in all seriousness, it was a great episode. I think it's been one of the best of all time of all of Trek.
Maybe from like Deep Space Nine, O'Brien Must Suffer. Maybe we can have Stamets Must Suffer.
I'd be okay with that. Actually, I would be. Yeah.
Admiral,
I normally don't give a purely character-driven episode a 10, but I'm going to do it for this one because it was so well done. It's possibly the best character-driven episode of Star Trek, across all series.
Wow,
I'll give it that. Wow. Yeah. I will agree with that. Actually, I will.
I'm going to disagree with that because for me at least, it's going to rank just slightly under Duet.
Duet's fantastic.
You just want, like, you love it for Ducat going nuts.
Duet. Okay,
that was
what? That's Waltz. Yeah, it's Waltz.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's another musical thing. Anyway.
Okay, I will actually say that it is up there with like the Duet and Jetrel and in the Pale Moonlight and the other like the big character-driven episodes for sure. But I actually think that this one kind of eclipses them because the other ones I think get to the core of what these characters are about, right? I think that this one gets to the core of what Star Trek is about and what the crew is about and what the ship and the characters are about. Because
it's not just what Adira is about and what each individual character is. It's that and it's them as a team.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we get possibly the best episode. Like we get a great introduction to Gray played by Ian Alexander. We get so much more character development out of Blue Dilberio's Adira, and like I said, this was the best character-driven episode that I've ever seen, and I'll put it on top of Duet and everything else.
That's fine. I'm going to give this like Anthony. I reserve my 10s. It's got to be something, and this was very special, but it's got to be something that just knocks me sideways to get a 10. I'm going to give this one an 8.5. Maybe I'll go as high as like an 8.7. It's so close to being a 9. The only thing that I knock it back for a little bit was the portrayal of Stamets. At the beginning of the episode, he is like early season 1 dickhead. It's like he regressed so much, and I'm sure that they made that portrayal intentional to have that breakthrough at the end be more noticeable or more poignant or whatever, but I don't think it was necessary, and I think it seemed very regressive for him. Otherwise, I absolutely loved it, and I mean, this show is like cooking with fire this year, and I am excited about it. A couple of rankings from the audience, if I can find some. George gave it a 10. Emotional connections everywhere. Agreed. Wendy is at a 9 because I need to leave the room for 10. Oh, also, this one didn't suffer from overdramatic music.
music.
That's very
Agreed.
true.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Very
Very
true. I
understated.
didn't think about that, but yeah, you're right about that.
The lullaby was so subtle. I mean,
Oh my God, it was.
it wasn't, but
Mhm.
I mean, it was just beautiful, lulling. And again, it gave me the feels listening to her play it, especially when she said that which of her past lives was the one that said my parents sang it to me when I was a baby.
It
And
was
I
the
thought, oh
Admiral.
God, was
Yeah.
it the Admiral?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was like, oh man. It's
And
like-
it's and I didn't notice this when I was watching the episode. It maybe it's that the score needed to be more subtle to make those moments of the
Yep.
cello playing stand out that
Mhm.
much more.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's a great observation. Clarence gives it a dang it, come on, an 8.5 out of 10.
Trillville.
Clearly, I know, isn't that great?
Now
Trillville
I'm
was
singing
awesome.
Trillville, wahoo. I mean,
All the
around
trills
Christmas
down in
tree.
Trillville were assholes that day.
Okay, so what's the price of onions on Trillville Island today?
All right. So thank you all very much for hanging out with me tonight and talking my second favorite subject in life, which is Star Trek, Doctor Who being the first one.
Of course.
I mean, come on. Even though,
Yeah.
as a fan, that was an accident. Even though, as a fan, I was a Star Trek fan first. I discovered Doctor Who a year after I discovered Star Trek.
Which
There
I
you
guess
go.
I could see because Star Trek was on broadcast television, so you probably had an easier, more current access to it, whereas you had to wait till it showed up on PBS.
So I want to show you my new mask.
Oh, look
nice.
at that! You have
Oh,
that.
there you go.
I do.
Commander?
I'm a commander in the sciences department.
Nice.
And this, of
Wow.
course, was
Is
made by Daniel
from-
from Companion's Corner. And I told him, and this is brand new. Like, he just made this and gave it to me a couple of days ago. I don't know that he has any of these on his website yet.
What are
to
the
purchase.
pips made of? Are they metal? Are they just little pellets that are put on there?
They're a plastic. I don't even know. They're
But
a hard.
they're three-dimensional.
They are. They are.
Wow,
Yeah.
look at that.
Isn't that great?
I
So
know.
he's made ones of each division, each color. The red one, of course, has 4 pips, so that you can be your very own captain.
Wow.
So, like I said, he's just made these a couple of days ago. I don't know if they're on his website yet, but I told him I am going to have this on the show tonight. So
Yeah. And
you're
the
going to get people
blue,
who want them.
the blue is a good color match. I mean,
Yeah.
it is the blue.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm impressed.
He sent me, he was, when he was shopping for fabrics, he sent me photos of like all this range of blues and this range of yellows. And he's like, which one would be right? I'm like, oh my God. I'm glad I helped him pick well.
Man, I gotta step up my matchmaking game.
I know, really.
Oh, but you've just recently started and you've done some good stuff there.
Oh yeah, no, it's all just one-offs, just whatever I like to do. But yeah, I've been making them, and I've been making a lot of other random crap too. But
Right.
got to do something with your time.
What's going on with Our Town DeKalb?
Well, we just released our November issue. It hit the mailboxes on Tuesday. And we're now working on our December issue. I'm, back in the hamster wheel. It's a monthly publication.
Absolutely.
So you have three and a half weeks on a hamster wheel, 3 days that you pass out and recover, and then you're back on the hamster wheel.
There you go. Since my buddy Clarence has been watching, I want to point out the Discussing Network. Everybody should get on there. They have a Discussing Doctor Who. They have Discussing Trek. They have a number of shows, and they do a great job. So I would definitely check that out. Our next one down the list is Anglotopia.net. What's going on with them?
Well, as per usual, I'm writing stuff for them. We're publishing articles every day on a wide range of topics, places, people, things, history. So if you want to know more about the UK and you don't have easy access to Anthony, you can come look at our website and read about anything and everything you want to know.
There you go. And Anthony, tell us what's happening over at the Watchers.
Well, I think, as anyone who's been watching this show for a while knows, we are watching our way through all of Doctor Who in order from 1963 through to now. We are currently in 1967 and have most recently done The Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yes.
And then
oh my god, I love that one.
this weekend we'll be publishing our episode on The Abominable Snowman.
Yep.
So
Nice.
Very excited. And you do this
There's neither an abominable nor snowman discuss.
you do this with you being the encyclopedic knowledge, a couple of people who are very, very, very familiar with the classic series, and one who's never watched the classic series before ever. So these are all new for her. Did he freeze?
Yes, he is.
Okay, well,
Yep, he's
I'm
frozen
just filling
again.
in information on his behalf.
right,
Curse you, Cox.
thank you.
You're welcome. Just to make people more interested in watching, because it's a fantastic podcast, and I absolutely love it. As he knows, I tell him that all.
Thank you, Alan. Hopefully, I'm back by now.
You are.
Yes, you are. Yay! I
So-
have missed you every time you've been gone.
So
We all do.
also,
You're such a lovely presence.
we have a historian as well as two film buffs and a
Right.
musician as the composition as well. So we've got a wide variety of subject matter expertise.
And Dove, tell us what you have going on in your life and where people might buy masks from you.
Oh god, I
Not like
don't
you're in
sell, I don't
competition with.
I don't sell them. I
Okay,
just
good.
I make them for fun. I've actually also started making bags. I
Mhm.
am pretty I actually don't have a whole lot of online presence aside from my incessant Facebook posting because I'm a software engineer. I write I sling code for a living and then I sew on my spare time. So that's it. I'm boring.
And you will be back next week.
Yes. Because I can't wait for next week either. Because they're gonna,
yeah.
The preview looked really, really interesting.
Yes. So at the end, Adira is like, okay, so I've recovered all my memories, and here are the coordinates that you
Yep.
need. So you know where we're headed.
Yep.
Yes. It's going to be good. I'm actually kind of surprised it's coming this soon in the season, this early.
Okay, well, you know that it's not going to be as simple as that. You know there's going to be a complication. It's going to be the Starfleet is in another castle, kind of,
Right, exactly. That's what I'm excited about. It's like last year they kept throwing us these curveballs with Spock.
Mm-hmm.
They're all like, we're on our way to meet Spock, and he's going to be here next episode. Nope. And it took it was like half the damn season before Ethan Peck ever really showed up. So I'm looking for some good misdirection. I can't wait to see what they're going to throw at me.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So you and
I'm hoping the crew gets the new uniforms. Like they upgrade from their old blue uniforms into the current. It's like, okay, welcome back to Starfleet. Here's everything else that you need now for the future.
Here's a welcome pack.
Right.
We're gonna get you trained up on phasers, new phaser.
All right. So next week we have Dove, as I mentioned, and we have Vandy Beth, and that's it so far. So if somebody else wants to jump in, let me know. Thank you all so very much for hanging out with me. This was a long episode. I kind of wanted to start it early so we could get more in, but then we still went 15 minutes over an hour. That's impressive. There's a lot to talk about in this episode.
20 minutes of battery life left.
All right. So thank you all very much. Hope you all have a great night.
Thank you for tolerating me once again.
To folks watching, thank you so much for all your questions and comments and for spending an evening with us. Everybody, be very good to each other and spread love and don't give up hope. And everybody have a great week. We'll see you again next Thursday night at 9 o'clock. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.